Hello everyone, welcome to Narayana IAS, and as a part of daily news analysis, we bring the 5 most important articles to you from The Hindu and Indian Express. And in continuation of the same series, today's 5 articles are: number 1, we will discuss a case for a food buffer policy. In this article, we will discuss what is food buffer policy and is there a need of extension of food buffer policy in India. Second, we will move on to larger academic decision behind Bombay High Court continuing the extension of the hijab ban in educational institution. In this article, we will discuss the reason that is given by the Bombay High Court to continue the ban on hijab in the educational institution. Third, we will move on to Unfit India, which is a report given by Lancet where it talks about that there is a lack of physical activity among Indians and what will be the consequences on health with this. Fourth, we will move on to RBI rejigs currency swap plan with SAARC. So in this article, we will discuss what is currency swap plan and what will be its significance with regard to SAARC. And lastly, we will move on to economists robust despite global risk. This is actually the term or the article, the statement that is taken from the financial stability report that is released by RBI. In this article, we will discuss the further conclusions from the report. And once we are done with this, we will discuss the prelims and mains question on the given article. Now, let's begin. So let's start with the first article, that is a case for the food buffer policy. This is important because this comes under GS paper 3 and this is directly mentioned in the syllabus. If you read the syllabus, it's written over there, issues of buffer stock and food security. And for that reason, UPSC keep on asking this question directly. It doesn't actually beat around the bush. It directly asks the question. Like in 2020 to 2019 it did, even 2018 it did. So every second or third year, the question is being asked. So last time it was asked in 2022. You can easily ask the same question in 2024 and 2025. So be prepared for it because it is an important topic for UPSC. Now, why are we talking about this recently? Now, currently we are talking about this because the article says that in current scenario, the global market and the domestic market is going through lot of vulnerabilities, lot of fluctuation as a result of climate change or as a result of war that is being fought on the global front. Now, in event of this, the government says, the article says that there was huge inflation trend in India, inflation to the extent of 8.9. But the article says this could have been even worse. However, there was a stabilizing effect of the buffer stock in India. As a result of the buffer stock, the inflation did not cross certain threshold. It was relatively stable. And this article says that in event of the current vulnerability, we may have to extend this buffer stock policy to some other crops as well. So it is this, in light of this, whether we're going to discuss this article. Now, before we start talking about this, why do we need to extend the buffer stock in India to other crops, we need to understand first of all what is buffer stock. Buffer stock is nothing. It is a pool of essential commodities like rice and wheat. So these are essential commodities without which the entire the civilization of people will suffer from hunger, from poverty, for so many issues. So of these commodities, a pool is created generally by the public sector. In case of India, this pool is created by the Food Corporation of India, which was created in 1969 under the 4th 5-year plan under the Act, that is Food Corporation Act of 1964. So FCI is responsible for creation of the buffer stock in India. It generally does for the rice and white and some other commodities, whichever the governments give the responsibility. The question is, why does FCI does that and why do we need to create buffer stock? This is done in order to ensure food security and to deal with emergency or contingency. Per se, after independence, it was the major responsibility of the government or primary responsibility that people should not go hungry. They should have enough food. When we create the buffer stock, it ensures the food security. Because government always has something to give it to citizen if there is not enough production. So the government is also ready to deal with emergency like cyclone or poor monsoon condition when the production is not equal to the demand that is created by society. Government has buffer stock to fall back upon. Along with that, it ensures some other objective as well, like it ensures the price stability. per se, the market is flooded with too much of produce and the farmers are not getting enough, enough price, and the government can take out extra and it will ensure the price stability, that there is enough price. If the price is too high because there is a scarcity of food, even in that scenario, government has buffer stock, which it can, by the open market operation, government can bring more food items, more cereals, the more rice and wheat to the market, and the price will be stabilized. And thus it ensures the price stability as well through the open market operation. And overall, it also ensures a government social welfare program, like providing the food to the poor section of society at the subsidy rate is also ensured, which is done under the targeted public distribution system under the fair price shop. So the government provide the food grain to the poor section of society at the subsidized rate, like 1 rupees, 2 rupees, 3 rupees. So it is through this buffer stock that the government is able to do so. And lastly, not only the welfare program, but providing the fair remuneration to the farmer. Here, we are talking about the fair remuneration to the farmer. Because if you see the entire scheme of buffer stock, how does it work? Number one, the government of India take the produce from the farmer, and the farmer for this are given the minimum support price. That means minimum fair price they are given. Below this, the farmers are definitely sure that this is the price they will get, and thus they will produce the food grains. So it ensures the fair remuneration to the farmer. After that, the Food Corporation of India creates a buffer stock. From the buffer stock, the food goes to the government, state government at the central issue price, and then central issue price distribute it to the fair price shop at actually subsidized rate, and there is a sale of grain at central issue price to the beneficiary. So whatever rate that is being decided, by which the price stability is also ensured, because the beneficiary are getting grain at a certain subsidized rate. Okay, now what is the role of the buffer stock at present? Till so far, we have emphasized the role of the buffer stock as the one that was preventing inflation. I said, like, it was creating the price stability, and thus the inflationary trend was stopped. But right now, we need that stabilizing force in case of other crops as well. And the article is talking about maybe you can extend it to pulses, maybe you can extend it to oil seeds, and you can even extend it to vegetables, which has seen huge price variability in these days. Okay, so now let's talk about the rationale for expansion. Why should we expand that? The article says because there is a climate-induced supply shocks in case of India and even in global market, which has created huge volatility, price volatility and uncertainty, which is not good even for the economy and economy and overall for the customer, and in particular the poor customer. So poor consumer suffers a lot in this. Second is, like I said, with the huge, there is a global market uncertainty as well as a result of the unstable global scenario, or maybe the impending new Cold War. Like recently, a pact happened in between Russia and North Korea, as a result of which alliances are created. The fluctuations, the rift happened in the Red Sea. It's also happening in Ukraine. The same thing is going on even in Israel and Palestine. As a result of this rift, the price of the market increases. So there is a huge volatility, and thus the article also says that there is a need of the buffer stock to create the stability, price stability. An article also says there is a need of diversification as well. As a result of the current buffer stock inclined towards only wheat and other cereals like rice, the farmers are inclined towards only producing these crops, which has created a strain on the natural resources like water, overuse of the fertilizers, whereas the other cereals or other grains like maybe millet are better in terms of environment. We need more geographically suitable crops as well, and with the help of diversification of buffer stock, we may be able to create more diversification and inclusion by focusing on pulses, oilseed, and even staple vegetation. That's what the article is talking about. Now, for this, the article talks about that there is a certain policy recommendation. The first recommendation is enhanced procurement. That means diversifying the basket of the buffer stock. Like I said, by including pulses, oil seeds, and even several millets as well. Second is when we're talking about vegetables, to create the buffer stock of vegetables will require more creativity, because it is very difficult to create a stock of the vegetable, because it is a perishable item. How can you store it for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months? So article says that you can actually store these by storing them into dehydrated form, and thus preventing a price war in event of the scarcity. So that's a very creative solution that is given by the policy. Third, it talk about that there is a need of creating financial viability, where you don't have to actually sell the stock at a very low price. Instead, sell the same item at an average price in case of scarcity. So the government will be able to actually recover all its costs. So the article says that there will not be the issue of the financial viability or the fiscal deficit that government faces right now if they come up with the adequate strategy. So that is a recommendation that the article has given. Now, so what is the future outlook? We need to come up with a strategic planning to deal with the different kinds of crops, be that millets, be that vegetable. And thus, the article talk about that government of India, like the RBI, can play the same role of stabilization of prices, which RBI does in case of the monetary policy. So lastly, there is a need of expanding buffer stock of the essential food in order to maintain the price volatility, ensure food security amid the unpredictable climate conditions, and thus reinforcing the economic stability and consumer welfare. With this, we're done with this article. Now let's move on to the next one. Let's start with the next article, that is larger academic interest behind Bombay High Court's hijab ban decision. So in this, we will discuss the two conflicting ideas. That is, number one is the freedom of religion, and number two is the idea of secularism that educational institution is trying to promote, which comes under the paper 2 and 3. That is the basic features of the Indian Constitution. And often the question is being asked from this particular part of the polity. Like even previously in 2019, UPSC has asked the question, which article of the Constitution of India safeguard one's right to marry the persons of one choice? 19, 21, 25 or 29. So just think about it. In meantime, let's move on to the article. Now, why are we talking about this? Why is this in news? This was in news recently because in 2024, the Chembur College implemented a dress code which actually banned any kind of religious identifier. So whenever you are wearing a dress, the religious identifier was completely banned, and that include like burqa, niqabs, hijab, or any other kinds of thing that identify you as belonging to one particular community were banned, be that for boys or that for the girls as well. Now, once that happened, the college implemented the ban. The student went to the judiciary by saying that is actually violate their fundamental right under Article 19 and 25. Now, the Bombay High Court actually went in the favor of college or the educational institution by saying that the new dress code is in the larger academic interest of student. So, there's this particular news that we are going to analyze, that why Bombay High Court took the decision in favor of the college. Moving on to, first of all, what was the argument? Like, we will talk about both the argument in favor and against. In favor, the argument is coming from the student, which says that the dress code is particularly arbitrary and discriminatory, because by banning the hijab and niqabs are prohibiting the Muslims to practice the essential religious practices, which comes under the doctrine of essential religious practices that we will discuss just in a few minutes. And thus, by imposing such kind of restriction, they are taking away their fundamental right under Article 19, which has given them the freedom of expression, and Article 25, which gives them freedom of religion of the Constitution. And thus, the third argument given by them is that it's a contravention to UGC guideline, which promote equity in higher education. And this is the argument that is given by the student, that it's discriminatory, it takes away the freedom of right, the fundamental rights, and it actually contravenes the UGC guidelines for equity in higher education. Now, what is the argument that is given against, like those who do not favor the hijab and other religious identifier in college institutions? Number one, the first argument comes from the administrative or the institute itself, which says that there is a need of uniformity in school. They say the school is a place which promote rationality, which promote objectivity, and thus school has to be a place where student can rise above its religion. And thus the institute says that by applying a uniform code, they're actually preventing the discrimination. They are promoting uniformity among all the students regardless of what religion they belong to. So the educational institution says that we are promoting uniformity by having a single code for all of them. It does not discriminate based on religion. Second is, it says that this is actually promoting objectivity by preventing students to disclose their religious identity, and thus they can entirely focus on education instead of focusing on their religion. And in their education, they can focus on the values of rationality, objectivity, and maintaining a larger discipline in the school institution. And third, the administrative institution has said that there has been a legal precedent. Even the Karnataka High Court in 2024 had says that the wearing hijab is not an essential religious practices, and thus they are not discriminating against any community. Also, so this was the argument in favor that was given by the institution. The second argument comes from the Bombay High Court, which says that by doing so, they are not infringing on the fundamental right of any community or individual, because Article 19 as well as 25 has given are subjected to reasonable restriction in the interest of public order, morality and health. And thus, to promote the larger academic interest, to promote the rationality, objectivity and uniformity in school has every right to impose such kind of a ban. It's not an absolute right. Article 19 and Article 25 are not absolute right. This is what you're going to remember over here. Again, the High Court has also says that by preventing the revelation of religious identity of a student, that actually takes away the focus of a student from the religion to now education, which is a more utmost requirement of education, and thus they can promote uniformity, constitutional secularism, rationalism, and other desired value in the education. And thus the High Court says that this code actually does not promote discrimination, instead it promotes uniformity. And High Court also lastly favors the argument that there's not enough evidence in favor of hijab being an essential religious practices in case of Islam. Now, since we have discussed essential religious practices a lot, we need to know what are essential religious practices. The doctrine of essential religious practices was given by the Supreme Court. It's actually a judicial invention which came by the 7-judge bench in 1954 in Shurur Mutt case. So 7-judge bench came up with this doctrine of essential religious practices, which says that they define the term religion encompasses all ritual and practices which are integral to the religion. So any ritual and practices that are integral to the practice of religion are considered as they encompass the religion. So doctrine has allowed this doctrine has helped judiciary. It has given them a tool to safeguard religious practices which are considered as essential and integral to religion. So if any practices is essential, that means without which the religion cannot stand. This was the basic foundation of a religion. The judiciary can actually try to protect this. So under this doctrine, they were actually protecting this such kind of essential practices. But you should remember, there is no objective criteria behind that. Often, what is essential, what is not, is left at the discretion of a judiciary. That which judge favor that this is essential practices and which is not. And you can see in several cases, the same thing has happened in case of Indian judiciary as well. Hijab has been declared as essential practice several times, and several times it is not. So there is lot of variation in terms of the judgment. But overall, this doctrine has originated from the speech that is given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in Constitutional Assembly that advocated that there is a need of state intervention in matter related to religion, in matter where it is not inherently religious. That means if any religious practices is not the basic foundation of religion, it is not important. Without this, the religion can stay, its basic tenets can stay, then state can easily intervene in that. So that was a doctrine of essential religious practices. So overall, in this article, what Bombay High Court has done this, it has upheld the hijab's ban on the Chembur College, prioritizing the institutional's right to maintain discipline and uniformity over the individual's dress preference, and emphasizing the focus on the academic environment against the need to show your religion at every place. With this, we're done with this article. Now let's move on to the next one. Moving on to next article, that is Unfit India, which is a Lancet study, and this comes in the GS paper 2 prelims as well as mains, because the health is an important topic, and the sedentary lifestyle is becoming a very important topic everywhere, and UPSC can definitely ask question. So and now in this scenario, this report will come very handy to you, because the Lancet has come up with this study by taking the data from the WHO. In 2016, UPSC has asked question, the Gadkil Committee report and the Kasturi Ranjan Committee report, sometimes seen in news, is related to constitutional reform, Ganga Action Plan, linking of river, the protection of Western Ghat. So, somehow you would know the answer. Just try to answer this one. Moving on to why are we talking about this? Because Lancet has come up with a study which highlighted that there is a concerning trend regarding level of physical activity in India, which is very low. The report says that almost 50% of Indians do not meet the criteria of having at least sufficient physical activity in a day. There is more sedentary lifestyle among the Indians. And this data is of 2022. They have taken the data from the WHO Physical Activity 2022, and based on this, interpretation has been taken. Now, what is Lancet? Lancet is one of the prestigious peer medical review journal that publishes significant research in the field of health and medicine. And for that, it takes a wide range of medical research. That could be original research article, it could be review article, it could be editorial, or even case report. It is known for the high impact among the medical community, consistently ranking among the top medical journal worldwide. The study here, they had taken data from the WHO and focuses on the physical activity level among the different regions. Now, moving on to what is the finding of the Lancet report. The Lancet report says that at least 50% of Indians are engaged in insufficient physical activities. And 50% of the Indians, half of the Indians, are not doing enough physical activity. And the article also says that there is enough disparity in between men and women, because there are more cultural barriers against the woman, where she's not been asked, it's not favored for her to go outside, do physical activity, and there's a lot of the modesty is imposed upon that, which has actually restricted their physical movement as well. The disparities to such a level that 57% of the women do not meet the criteria against the 42% of the men who are not actually doing the enough physical activity level. Overall, the situation of India is becoming such bad that in South Asian region, India ranks the second highest globally for adults not meeting the required physical activity level. And there is enough prevalence of insufficient physical activity in India that has sharply increased from 22% in 2000 to 49.4%. That means earlier, a quarter of Indian population was not doing physical activities, but now the half of India's population is not doing physical activity. So there is a sharp rise in the people who are living a very sedentary lifestyle. Lastly, the high-income Asia-Pacific region have higher rate of physical inactivity. According to report, India ranks 12th in terms of insufficient physical activity. So at Asia level, second, and the global level, it is 12th. So it is not a good picture for India. And if the trend continues, the 60% of Indian population would be unfit by 2030, increasing the risk of various diseases that include cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, dementia, and certain kinds of cancers. Okay, now what denotes insufficient level of physical activity? Now it has two criteria. Number one, if there is not enough moderate intensity activity for at least 150 minutes a day. The moderate intensity activity includes like brisk walking, sweeping the floor, or slow dancing. If that activity is not in their routine for your 150 minutes, that's basically insufficient physical activity. Or there should be, or there is not at least 75 minutes of the vigorous intensity activities. The vigorous intensity activity includes running, swimming, playing soccer, and cycling, which are responsible for the cardiovascular activity, which are responsible for reducing down your weight, responsible for swimming. So either there should be 150 minutes of the moderate intensity activity, or there should be at least 75 minutes of the vigorous intensity activity. And when there is or there can be combination of these two. And when there is neither of these two, there is insufficient physical activity in the individual. Okay. Now, so what can be done? There can be suggestion on the institutional level as well as individual level. When it comes to institutional level, there should be increased awareness and encouragement for the physical activity and its benefit, which can be promoted in school as well as the workplace. So these are that's your target area and audience. Second is increased community and infrastructural development. So there is enough park, sports club, sports facility. So there is a safe and easy accessibility of these activities. Often the people do not engage in running and any other physical activity because because there is not enough space for them to run, and the pollution is another major concern. Third is the policy intervention, the intervention to reduce the sedentary behavior and promote the active transportation, target vulnerable population who are in the more healthy age group. That means they have put on the maybe unfavorable weight. They can be targeted. They can be asked to do more physical activity. Next is the personal and social initiative. We are coming up to individual level, where at personal level, the physical activity should be integrated at a daily routine. Utilize social support system for motivation. That means you can ask maybe your parents to keep a tab on you, maybe your siblings, maybe your spouse. So somebody should be there to keep a tab on you. Then there is a diet and lifestyle adjustment, where you need to adopt and adjust the balanced diet with which is rich in the micronutrient, and then make a small manageable daily routine changes which make sure that you have enough physical activity in your daily routine. Now let's move on to the article, that is RBI rejigs SAARC currency swap plan. So in this article, we will discuss what is currency swap agreement, which comes under the JS paper 3 prelims, and it can also be even asked in mains. Along with that, we will discuss some regional grouping as well, especially SAARC, because this swap agreement is discussed or actually implemented in regard to SAARC. The question like that is often asked in UPSC, like the term regional comprehensive economic partnership often appears in news in the context of economic affairs of group of countries known as G20, ASEAN, SCO, SAARC, for which we are actually talking about this. So just think about it and try to give the answer to this question. Moving on to, why are we talking about currency swap agreement, especially in regard to SAARC? Because RBI has implemented a revised framework for the currency swap agreement with these SAARC countries in period 2024 to 2027. So in this period, that means from 2024 onwards till 2024-7, the currency swapping between the 2 or 3 countries and between the entire SAARC region will be done based on revised framework. Now, what this framework does, why are we bringing this? This framework has been brought to increase the financial stability and cooperation among the SAARC countries, because overall SAARC nations in these past few days have gone through certain financial instability. You have seen in case of Bangladesh, in case of Myanmar, and some other countries which are suffering. The arrangement is designed to offer financial assistance to SAARC countries, facilitating better management of their foreign exchange. So in like Sri Lanka, which is suffering, we want to provide them financial exchange in light of the financial instability that they're going through. Now, first we need to understand what is currency swap agreement. Currency swap agreement is nothing. It's basically an exchange agreement or financial agreement between 2 countries and their central bank to exchange currency with each other under certain specified terms and conditions. So the 2 countries are basically exchanging currency. Like if this is country A and this is country B, if they have engaged in a currency swap agreement, then the central bank of the country A will give some amount of money to the central bank of currency B in terms of rupee. Maybe like per se, this is India, this is giving rupee maybe 10,000 or 1 lakh rupees to the country B, and the central bank of the currency B will give rupee in their own currency. Like some, if this could be in terms of dollar, this could be in terms of euro, this could be in terms of pound, or can be yuan. That's basically currency swap agreement. Now, this is done to facilitate the trade between the 2 countries, because in event of not having the currency swap agreement, all the trade may be done in terms of dollar, right? Because maybe currency B is Poland. What will Poland do? Like Poland want to buy something from India and it is trying to buy, it doesn't have rupee in that case. So it will give dollar. Maybe it will give or whatever currency then it case have. So India may accept dollar, but whenever India want to buy something from the Poland, it will it will have to pay in terms of rupee. But can Poland accept rupee? No, it is not accepted. Generally, actually the currency that is accepted worldwide is dollar. So in that case, the dependency on dollar becomes very high. To avoid the dependency, what country does is, you know what, you can keep some X amount of money with you. We are saying to Poland, and Poland is saying you can keep this Y amount of money with you, and we will pay each other in terms of that money. So whenever India will try to buy something from the Poland, it is getting the good and it has to pay. It will pay the same Poland money, whatever the currency is, it will pay in terms of that, the Y amount of money, and after certain year they will again revise in terms of exchange rate. So the dependence on dollar has gone because both countries has each other's currency. Here, like Poland has a rupee with it, or maybe you can also say in terms of maybe here on one point there is India, another point there is Nepal. The case can be of India or Nepal. So India has Nepalese rupee and the Nepal has Indian rupee. So in this case, if Nepal is buying something from India, it can pay in terms of Indian rupee. If India wants to buy something from Nepal, it can pay in terms of Nepal rupees. And finally, at the end of the year, the entire thing can be managed. The entire accounts can be managed. And in the entire transaction, the dollar is not being used. So that's basically currency swap agreement, where they're swapping currency with each other. These currency swap agreement are of two types. Number one is a bilateral swap. That means if the agreement is only between the two nations, like I gave you example of India and Nepal. This can also be multilateral. That means multiple countries are there. Maybe India is going into agreement with the SAARC countries. Here, Indian Central Bank will be giving rupee to multiple countries. India, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan. And these countries will also be giving their currency to India to facilitate the trade between the two or three or multiple countries. So that's basically multilateral swap. That means the swap is taking place between the central bank of multiple nations. The example over here is SAARC nation. So here the swap with the SAARC nation is a kind of multilateral currency swap agreement where India has signed the currency swap agreement with the multiple countries which are member of the SAARC nations. Now what is SAARC? SAARC is basically a regional grouping of the member, India's neighbor basically, that includes the Maldives, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. In the beginning, I was saying Myanmar. Please correct that. It's not the member. The members are mentioned over there. In 2007, Afghanistan also joined over here. This formed in 1985, December 8, and it promotes the regional integration and economic cooperation in the South Asian country. Its secretariat is located in Kathmandu, Nepal. It coordinates and monitors the implementation of SAARC activities. It presents political and bilateral issue among the member states. Generally, that also become problem because if the bilateral relationship between the two countries is not good, it impacts the functioning of the SAARC nations as well, which is actually the concern right now. As a result of the not so good relationship between India and Pakistan, the SAARC as a regional grouping, its effectiveness is also suffering. With this, we're done with this article. Now let's move on to the next one. Moving on to next article, that is economy is robust despite global risk. This we're talking from the Financial Stability Report that is released by the RBI, which is part of the GS Paper 3 Prelims, that is economic growth and development. These reports are important, like in terms of 2016 itself, the UPSC is asked question. The Global Financial Stability Report is released by which organization? European Central Bank, IMF, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So just think about it, which organization is responsible for releasing this report. Of course, in this article, we will talk about this. Now, why are we talking about this particular report? This is in light of the RBI has released its June financial stability report, noting that India's economy and financial system has remained robust and resilient, with a gross non-performing asset coming down, which is a multi-year low of 2.8% by the end of the March 2024. So our NPAs, that is non-performing assets, that means the asset which are not giving the return or whose principal amount cannot be recovered from the people, they have come down to the level of 2.8%. Remember, they were very high, like 5, 6 or almost a decade ago. Now, what is the Financial Stability Report? This is a basically biannual publication released by the Reserve Bank of India to evaluate how robust is our financial system. What is the health of our macroeconomic indicators? So now, in order to review the performance and stability for this, what RBI does is it reviews the performance and stabilities of the various financial institutions, be that banks or non-banking financial companies. Now, along with that, it also examined both the global and economic domestic conditions to conduct to actually see the financial stability at both the level, domestic as well as global level. Second is conduct the stress test to forecast the potential impact on financial stability under varying economic scenario. That means it measures if economic situation goes left or it goes not in a right direction, what will be the impact on the macroeconomic indicators. So it also measures that in order to understand how much resilience is there in our economy. Along with that, you should also know the Global Financial Stability Report, the question on which we asked in the beginning, is released by the International Monetary Fund, that is IMF. It is a semi-annual report that assesses the stability of the global financial market and emerging market financing. So, the same role is done by the IMF at the global level, the role which is done by RBI at the domestic level, and thus they release two similar kind of report. If it is global, it is IMF. If it is not global, then it is India. India's RBI is releasing that report. Now, the key highlight of the latest financial stability report. The report says that overall, in terms of global economic scenario, there is actually risk factor over there because of the rising geopolitical tension, elevated public debt, and slow disinflation progress. But despite that, there is actually the financial system, the global financial system is resilient and its financial condition is stable. So there is a problem, yet the situation, the estimation is optimistic even at the global platform. Coming to the domestic level, the report says that Indian economy is overall resilient, its macroeconomic indicators are performing better, its bank and financial institution has supported economic activity through sustained credit expansion. That means they are giving enough loan to the various companies, and overall their balance sheet is even getting better. Like it shows that how NPA has come down, the gross non-performing asset has come down to the level of 2.8 and the net non-performing asset is to the level of 0.6%. So we will, now you should know the difference between what is gross NPA and net NPA. Gross NPA represents basically those non-performing assets we measure without making any provisioning for this. That means you have not restructured them. You have not taken care of them. That is basically raw sheet of the Bank of India. That means a bank has basically 10 lakh out of 1 crore as someone which is not performing. That means I can say that 10% of the asset they are not able to recover. That might be gross NPA. That means they have not made any provision. But what if bank has made a provision for at least 5 lakh out of 10 lakh. That means 5 lakh they have restructured, given to some asset reconstruction company. Now the non-performing assets has come down to what? Maybe 5%, maybe only 5 lakh NPA. So if the provisioning is done, and that's when you calculate the NPA, that's basically called as net non-performing asset. That means provision has been made. So they are generally lesser than the gross non-performing asset. If there is no provision, it actually shows the raw figure of the bank's balance sheet. Other indicator says that it's the financial stability report. Like I said, it talks about the financial state of the bank as well as non-banking institute. It says that the capital to risk weight assets or CRAR ratio and the common equity tier 1 ratio, the scheduled commercial banks stood at 16.8% and 13.9% respectively by the end of the March 2024. It also says that the stress test outcome was also positive in case of India. That means the macro stress for credit risk indicate that SCB should be able to maintain compliance with the minimum capital requirement even under the stress scenario. That means our weighted risk assets, that means our asset which are not risky, their particular percentage will be good. That means they're not easily be converted to non-performing assets. Also, the performance of non-banking financial company NBFC has remained healthy with the CRAR at around 26.6%, the GNP at 4.0 and the return on assets around 3.3 as of March 2024. Now, let's come to what is the CRAR or capital to risk weighted ratio. This ratio is important. It is because it's also known as the capital adequacy ratio. It is one of the most important indicator used by the investor and analysis to judge the financial stability of the market or even of the bank and to actually measure the availability of the capital as percentage of the risk-weighted credit exposure. So how do we measure it? Whatever capital the bank is given to the ratio of its risk-weight asset. So, upper you mention all entire capital it has, and below down you actually write the risk-weighted asset. The purpose of the ratio is to help bank protect from the depositor and promote financial health. So, by this we try to inculcate as much as resilient capital in the bank or financial institution as much as possible. With this, we are done with this article. After this, let's move on to the prelims and mains question on the same articles. Now, let's discuss the prelims and mains question on this. The first article is, consider the following statement with regard to the doctrine of essential religious practices, which was in the news recently. This doctrine is mentioned in the Article 25 of the Indian Constitution as a fundamental right. Okay, I talked to you that this is basically a judicial invention which was brought by the 7-judge bench of the Shirur Mud case. That's why it is not mentioned in the Indian Constitution. It is basically interpretation. So, hence Article 1 is wrong. This doctrine allows the court to discern and safeguard religious practice deemed essential and integral to religion. That is true. That's what the functional doctrine of essential religious practices. And hence, the correct judgment is going to be the two only. So, answer is B. Consider the following statement regarding to RBI's India's revised framework for currency swap arrangement with the SAARC countries for the period 2024 to 2027. So the first statement says that the primary objective of the revised framework is to enhance financial stability and cooperation amongst SAARC countries. It is a very general statement, and general statements are generally true, and it's actually true in true sense as well. Second is the currency swap agreement is a financial agreement solely between the central bank of the different countries to exchange the domestic currencies without specified terms and conditions. So like it solely is wrong, and generally there is a terms and condition. It's not without terms and condition. There are certain terms and condition, and hence of course the statement 2 is also wrong, because it's not just the central bank, the countries and all other factors can also be participated in that. So hence the statement 2 is wrong, and your answer is going to be 1 only. Moving on to consider the following statement about the SAARC, or the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It was established in December 8, 1985 with the 7 founding members. That's true, of course. December 8 was the day it was found. Afghanistan is the latest member to join SAARC. After that, it became 8, and that's the statement is true. 2007, Afghanistan joined. SAARC Secretariat is located in Islamabad, Pakistan. Okay. Specifically, we mentioned that it was located in, it's actually Kathmandu, Nepal, and hence statement 3 is wrong. The persistent political bilateral issue among the member states, particularly India and Pakistan, have impacted SAARC effectiveness. We specifically talk about how SAARC is impacted as a result of lack of cooperation or poor bilateral relationship between the member countries. And hence, how many statements are correct? Your answer is going to be only 3 statements are correct, as a 4th statement is wrong. Moving on to All India and Indian Bank CEO is concerned about maintaining financial stability and regulatory compliance, particularly in light of the Basel III norms. The metric she focuses on most closely, which represents the bank's capital as the percentage of risk-weighted asset, is known as the liquidity coverage ratio, the capital adequacy ratio, the net stable funding ratio, or the leverage ratio. You know, we read this ratio, and this is a definition of capital adequacy ratio, and hence your answer is going to be B. Lastly, consider the following statement regarding the Lancet report on the physical activity in India. The disparity in the physical inactivity levels between the men and women was reported to up to 14% higher among women. And we saw that. That was basically true. The South Asian rank highest globally for adults not meeting the recommended physical activity level. Though South Asian countries are ranking higher, but they are not the highest. They have the 2nd highest position. The 1st highest goes to the rich the Asia Pacific countries. And hence the statement 2 is wrong, and the answer is going to be the 1 only. Moving on to the main question. The question says that the food security and price stability are the biggest challenge for the good governance in India still today, especially food governance. In light of this, do you think India's buffer policy needs a relook? So the question is on the buffer policy, and they're talking about in terms of food security and the price stability. So how will you start this question is by introducing what is buffer stock. And then you will talk about its significance or its functions, where you can directly mention its role in the food security, price stability, and then overall the right remuneration to the farmer and other roles that it plays. And once you're done with that, then we'll move on to body. That is, there is a need of change. Then you can talk about, yes, there is a need of change in terms of why. Because of the climate change has introduced new levels of vulnerability, especially for the vegetable crops, which are more vulnerable, pulses and oil seeds. Then you would talk about how there is a need of diversification, because our old activities are promoting monocropping in terms of rice and wheat, and we need to promote other crops as well. And then other reason in terms of how there is a global price and market volatility, and thus we need to bring more crops under our ambit, or under the ambit of the buffer stock, or the umbrella of the buffer stock, so that there can be more price stability in the global market. So that will be the reason. But also, since discuss, that means you have to come up with the opposite perspective as well. In opposite, you will talk about the negative consequences or the challenges in terms of there is a financial constraint. The government has to meet the physical requirement of fiscal deficit has to come down under the FRBM Act. So you will talk about it. Then you will say how it is difficult in terms of vegetable, because it is a very perishable crops, and it's very difficult to do in that regard. The pulses and you can't easily introduce them. Then you will talk about how it will undermine WTO India's commitment in the WTO. It should not give subsidy more than a certain required level. In order to maintain a buffer stock, it will have to give a subsidy. Then you will also talk about that maintaining a buffer stock would also means losing crops, like because there is a lot of wastage over there. And you can also say this goes against a market mechanism as well. Overall, we try to promote the laissez-faire. We try to promote there is a lesser intervention by the government in the agriculture market, so that the agriculture can also be treated as a business enterprise. So then you will talk about maybe buffer stock will be actually fire back. But overall, while giving a suggestion, you can say that maybe we don't have to reform the buffer stock policy altogether, maybe once at a time, maybe like all together in a one go, but we can step by step include more crops into this. And then you can come out talk about some certain innovation to deal with the challenges. Like in case of vegetable, we can go more for the dehydration of the vegetable and then storing it. We can also talk about, instead of actually selling it as a subsidized rate, we can sell the same vegetable or same stock in a lean season or scarcity season, where the government will be able to recover the cost, and thus it will not be a very expensive enterprise for the government of India. We can also say that we can also promote more warehousing, development of the market. The supply chain can be better. So overall, the supply chain will be better, than the price stability and food security will also be better. And thus these are the solutions that you will give in this question. Now with this, we are done with all the article in question. For watching this video, thank you so much. If you have any doubt, please make a comment in the comment section. Further, please like, share and subscribe Narayana IAS channel. We bring the content that delivers the quality.